One easy way to cut string, I always show everyone because yarn is a little bit different than cutting paper. What you want to do is when you open up your scissors, put the yarn all the way down in the bottom of your scissors. Your scissors don't cut as well on the tip of the scissors. So put your yarn all the way down on the bottom, and then you'll see that I kind of pull it tight with my other hand after it's kind of wrapped around the scissors. I hold on to it so that it's tight and not loose. Hold on to it really tight and then cut. It'll cut so much easier for you. It'll give you a nice clean cut, which will make it easier to weave with. Okay, so once you're done cutting your string on the back, your yarn on the back, this is my tail. So you'll notice that I have two tails. I have one at the top of my loom and I have one at the bottom of my loom. So it should look like this, where you have two tails. You can either tie these together, these two tails together, or you can just take your string and you can tuck it underneath. So you can decide which one you want to do. If you're really good at tying and you want to tie, that's fine. You can help other people tie. If you just want to tuck it under your other warp strings, that is fine too. It honestly doesn't really matter. It's just up to you, because we're going to end up cutting these all off when we're all done with our weaving anyway. Okay, now that we have our warp on our loom, our next step is to add our weft. So weft is what you're actually going to start weaving into your warp. And remember to cut our string. We want to make sure that we get it down in the scissors all the way down, pull it tight, cut it on the inside of the scissors. Okay, now when you're cutting your string, you want to cut about an arm's length. So you're going to stretch it out about 1 arm's length. You don't want it too long when you're first starting to learn how to weave, because it gets a little tangled. So start with about 1 arm's length and then we'll sort of go from there. So I have my yarn cut for my weft. I'm going to start with white, and we're doing a tabby weave. Tabby weave means we're going under, over, under, over, under, over, and we keep repeating that. So what that means is I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to lift up the first warp string and go under it. Then I'm going to go over the next warp string, then under, then over, then under, then over, then under, then over, under, over, under, over, under. So you can check it before you do anything else. Under, over, and I just keep checking my pattern all the way down. We've talked about pattern a lot, so you guys know pattern. You know colors of patterns, shapes patterns, letter patterns. We've been working on pattern a lot this year, so this is called a tabby pattern. Now, when you're done weaving that row, you pull it through. In this very first row, I'm going to leave a little tail hanging. I'm going to take that tail and I'm going to just tuck it into the little notch on the bottom. You can even flip it over and tuck it into your warp strings on the back, just so it doesn't get in your way or get tangled or bother you. Then your next step is to push down each row. So every time you weave, you're going to push it down, okay, and make it nice and tight. Now, the next row, we do the opposite. So I was under on this row when I ended by going under. So my next row, I'm gonna start by going over that string. Remember, you keep doing the pattern. So I was under, I'm gonna go over that string and under the next one. Over, under, over, under. And you're gonna kind of get into a rhythm that feels comfortable to you. You can kind of think of it as lifting up every other string. So skip, lift, tuck it under, skip, lift, tuck it under. Now remember, you're gonna pull the string through, but what you need to be careful of is not pulling too tight on the end of your warp string here. So when you pull your weft through, don't pull it so tight that it's bending. See how it started bending my warp? And you need to check every row. If you notice it and you have 5 rows done, it's really hard to pull it back out. If you notice it after 1 row, it's very easy to just pull it back out. And then I'm going to push it all the way down so it touches my next row. So these are little things that you'll kind of get in the habit of doing as you keep practicing. But the first few rows or so, you're gonna have to keep reminding yourself. I was over on this row, so now I'm going to go under this row. It's the opposite. Keep doing your pattern. Over, under, over, under. Think of it maybe as lifting every other string. You can kind of get into that rhythm on your own. Tell yourself what you need to in your mind to remind yourself to do that same tabby pattern. Now I'm gonna pull that string through, and remember I want it tight but not too tight, so it's pulling my warp strings. If it starts to pull my warp strings, pull it back out. You can kind of play around with it until you have it the way you want, but we want to keep those warp strings nice and straight up and down vertical lines. Now I'm going to push that row down. So each row should be touching the one before it, all the way down nice and tight. Okay, so that's tabby weave. You're just going to keep doing that until you've almost finished your string. Leave a little tail at the end, and in the next video I'll show you how you start your next string.